Other interesting political news, a little couple of videos of Vivek Ramswamy are starting to go viral and coming up to the surface, talking to his experience more on the Second Amendment, which, unfortunately, I wish this wasn't a political thing, since I believe every American should believe in the Bill of Rights. But in the United States, for my international viewers, when it comes to the Bill of Rights and believing in the Second Amendment, which is also known as the freedom to keep and bear arms, it's become one of those things where it's a cliche, but Republicans usually support it. Democrats usually are against it, want to take the guns away. Although I'd also argue Republicans are kind of useless in terms of where are the additional gun rights you keep promising us, where many of them are just acquiescing from all responsibility. And every once in a while you get a little more gun rights, but there's still a 1934 NFA, National Firearms Act. So yeah, needless to say that I'm not a fan of many politicians. But Vivek, obviously, he's running for the Republican nominee. So people are starting to ask, what is his stance on the Second Amendment? What is his thoughts on how do you prevent some of these disasters, some of these tragedies that are happening? What are your philosophies and how can you do this? Now, this is from a couple of months ago. It looks like he was speaking at an NRA event, which another association that does some great work in terms of safety classes and courses, but in terms of political activism and winning our rights back, I would argue they're not as strong as they once were. And most people I know these days are more adamant about Second Amendment. They're much more favorable to associations like Gun Owners of America, who pride themselves being a no compromise, I believe it's a 501c3 nonprofit. So they're all about no compromise, whereas the NRA, well, they pretty much acquiesce to whatever people on the left want. Wayne LaPierre, that Frenchman, is still the CEO after all these years. And their accomplishments, I think, could be written on a cocktail napkin. Don't get me wrong, the last accomplishment I knew that they did was they got concealed carry passed in Illinois. They sued the state successfully, and they got that law passed December 12, 2012. But that's the biggest accomplishment I could think of. They actually endorsed Trump's idea of banning the bump stocks, which is a huge controversy in the Second Amendment community. But nevertheless, let's get back to Vivek and his speech here.
We are the pioneers who came to this country, whose parents came to this country, whose forefathers came to this country to be free, to be the explorers, to roam the American terrain without any government telling them what they could or couldn't do. And the reason we're able to do it is because of the existence of that Second Amendment. Now, I'll tell you, you hear from the other side that, well, we have school shootings in this country. We have mass shootings. I'll tell you, there's not a person in this room that wants to see another school shooting in this country.
That is perhaps one of the most frustrating things when it comes to these political comments and these political debates. One of the most morally vacuous things you can do is tell someone, well, because you don't agree with my philosophy on how to fix this problem, you're heartless and you don't care about the dying kids, which is disgusting and shows how low intellect they are when they're using emotional manipulation and try to get their point across. But I'm glad he addresses this issue head on.
You want to have the courage to deal with it, then step up and deal with the actual problem. We have a mental health epidemic across America. You want to do something, you can ban social media and kids under the age of 15 or 16 before you take guns away from law-abiding adults in America.
I still can't think of a single good reason to have them on social media.
You want to solve the problem, you better take away. You want to solve the drugs on the street, you want to use our military. Don't go out to protect somebody else's border. Protect our border here in the United States and end the fentanyl crisis. That is how you solve the problem. The fatherlessness epidemic. 25% of kids are born into families without a household. Black Lives Matter says they want to annihilate the nuclear family structure. You want to know what I say? The nuclear family structure is the best known form of governance to mankind. We actually need to bring back the family because that's actually what creates the shooting problems in this country.
True. Very rarely do you find one of these incidents where they come from a loving, supported family. But no one ever wants to talk about that. They want to talk about the simple things. They want to blame the inanimate object that sits there and does nothing unless you pick it up and do something with it.
Fix the problem. Now, that mental health epidemic, where did it come from? It didn't start in a vacuum. Okay, it started because we are lost in the desert. I'm going to tell you something about myself. I'm 37 years old. I was born in 1985. I'm the first millennial candidate ever to run for U.S. president as a Republican. I'm going to speak to you on behalf of my generation. I'm going to tell you something about us. I think it's true about all of us of every age, actually, in this country. We are lost. We are hungry for a cause. We're hungry for purpose and meaning and identity when the things that used to fill that purpose, like faith, patriotism, hard work, family, these things have disappeared. Wokeness, gender ideology, transgenderism, the climate cult, COVID cult have taken their place. You ask someone my age, what does it mean to be an American? You get a blank stare in response. That is the problem at the heart of our national soul. And if we can answer what it means to be an American today, that is how you stop the spread of anxiety and depression and uncertainty and self-doubt. So what does it mean to be American? It means you believe in basic ideas like merit, the idea that you get ahead in this country not on the color of your skin, as Martin Luther King said it, but on the content of your character and your contributions, which is why I'll end race-based affirmative action in America. It means you believe in the rule of law, that people like my parents who want to come to this country can come through the front door and make their contributions, but I am sorry, your first act of entering this country cannot be a law-breaking one. That is not racist or xenophobic. It is what it means to be American. It means we believe. Thank you. It means we believe in free speech and open debate, because I'll tell you this, free speech is a condition for peace in America. You tell people they cannot speak, that is when they scream. You tell people...
It's also how you create echo chambers. When you ban everyone and they go to one area, they're only going to speak themselves. They're just going to get the same ideas reinforced. You're not going to disprove those ideals you don't agree with, which is why pretty much, in my opinion, the solution to many of these issues is public debates. Have philosophical discussion, have the best ideas bring to the surface.
People, they cannot scream. That is when they tear things down. Our founding fathers knew that as well as anybody. They had a dream in this country. It's the dream that I have as a citizen, that the people who we elect to run the government in America ought to be the people who actually run the government in America, not this permanent state administrative bureaucracy that actually runs the show. And that is why we need to get in there and shut down that federal bureaucracy. I'll tell you where I'll start. Let's start with the Department of Education. 83, thank you. Let me hear it. $83 billion a year spent on God knows what, foisting race and gender ideology onto our kids. Shut that down for a quarter of that budget. I've done the math on this. You can put 3 armed security guards in every school across this nation. You tell me what's a better use of money.
I think someone also did the math on, oh yeah, we've sent this other country over $100 billion. We've equipped an armed veteran at every single public school in the United States. But it shows our politicians' priorities. It's not our countries, the other countries.
I've also said that we need to go further. When you have an agency like that FBI that told Martin Luther King he couldn't have that concealed permit, that now tells conservatives effectively the same thing, politicizing the police state against them, you can't reform that from the top down.
You have states like New York that are especially like this. Although politicians, famously Dianne Feinstein a couple years back, they got their concealed carry permits approved like that. But everyone else had to jump through hoops for months and months just to be told no.
This is why I've said what you're not supposed to say, but I'm saying it tonight. I will say it again. We will shut down the FBI and replace it with a police apparatus that actually respects the law instead of making it up.
I really hope he doesn't visit Dallas. It didn't end so well for the last politician that threatened the FBI and CIA.
And that apparatus can actually do the job of those background checks, which means that tonight I'm pleased to make the announcement that if I'm elected next president of the United States, we will finally shut down the ATF, an agency that is beyond repair. That is the right answer left in the country. And while we're at it, let's make constitutional carry the law of the land and finally put any ban on those efforts to actually make that federal gun registry, because they want to be able to find you just like the British monarch wanted to find the colonists. We're not going to let that happen.
Brilliant and articulate end of that speech, I must say. Calling on a lot of the things most conservatives are concerned about, and many historical facts as well. If you look at history, pretty much every time the government takes the guns from the people, nothing good ever happens. There's a reason my family got out of Cuba even as soon as they could. And it'll be interesting if he can get rid of the ATF, which I can't imagine. There's going to be a lot of alive dogs in the next couple of years if the ATF didn't exist. My God. Which, dark humor. Look at their protocol for handling dogs, as well as look up Ruby Ridge and Waco incidents. But that's their protocol. That's what they like to do. So it'll be interesting to see. And as he gains more and more steam, I think we're going to have more and more of these previous clips. Again, that was from the NRA convention a couple months back. I think you're going to see more and more of these clips going viral as people start to research the man behind the messaging, or the message behind the man. Yeah, little column A, little column B. People want to see, what are his opinions on these important topics that they find dear to their heart. He's certainly starting to go viral. It'll be interesting to see, can he keep up this momentum, and what polls are he's going to accelerate in, and does he really stand a chance? It'll be interesting to see. Time shall tell. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in. We're trying to get again to 3,000 subscribers by the end of August, so you can click that button. I'd greatly appreciate it. Also, take the time to like and comment. That greatly helps out the channel. The feedback is also invaluable, whether it's giving your evidence or your experiences beyond the topics we cover, or just critical feedback on how I can make the show better. It's always appreciated. Also, don't forget to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe, fight the good fight.